Hello everyone, my name is Roya, and today I'm coming to you with the books that I read in the latter half of October. There are actually several of them, but most of them were ebooks and audiobooks, so so I didn't get to a lot of the books that I meant to get to, but that's really okay. So the one physical book that I got to in the latter half of October is Redwall by Brian Jacques. This is basically about a bunch of mice who are fighting things like rats and snakes and stuff. It's definitely really cool and interesting. It's not like the best book I've ever read, but I really liked it. Then I read The Starless Crown, which is basically I'm not even sure how to describe it. It basically follows a bunch of different characters kind of in a Game of Thrones-esque way. There are giant bat things, and yeah, it's just really weird. I wasn't really a fan of the fact that people's disabilities get cured by magic in this book, but overall it was definitely a good book. I really liked it. The Witch's Heart, which follows the story of Angrboda, who you may know as the mother of three of Loki's very strange children. This was a really good book. I really liked it. It really felt a lot like reading historical fiction, only it was a lot better. So yeah, overall, and it was a quick read too, and also she hooks up with a woman, which is really, really awesome. From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout, this was the worst book that I read this year. I have a whole video about how terrible it was, but basically it was a huge mess. It literally makes Lightlark look like a masterpiece. That's how bad it was. The writing was terrible. The whole story contradicted itself the whole time. Literally, when I say the writing is terrible, I mean really, like, every sentence is so poorly written that I could not tell what it was implying or what it was supposed to be telling us. I just did not understand this book at all. And the irony is that this was a Goodreads Choice Award winner. This is like a hugely beloved book, and I do not understand. It literally felt like reading a first draft, and it was awful. But you can hear all my thoughts, or most of my thoughts anyway, in my full video review of just how bad this book was. I will also be talking about it in my worst books of the year video. A Scatter of Light by Malinda Lo. This is about a girl named Aria who ends up going to, her summer plans are just all ruined, and it's her last summer before college. So she goes to stay the summer with her grandmother, and while she's there, she meets a girl, and she had never known really that she liked girls, and yet she like falls in love with this girl. I really liked this book because, I mean, not only was it just really good the whole way through and everything, but it addressed, like, you know, there's cheating that goes on in this book. The other girl is in a relationship and all of that, and she cheats on her girlfriend, and it's not she does get in trouble for that, and it is they're both absolutely called out for that, and they, you know, they don't end up like happily ever after at the end, while it's still a really good relationship throughout the story that I really liked reading about. So it's and you know, I like stuff like that. I really like relationships that are well written, that I like reading about, but who don't necessarily wind up either like together by the end or together forever by the end, or whatever it is. So I really like books like that. I really like awesome queer stories, and also the main character is Asian, of course, because it's Malinda Lo's book, and she always writes Asian main characters. It's also a companion to her previous book, Last Night at the Telegraph Club. The main character of that book actually does have a connection to the main character of this book, even though they take place like a good, you know, 50 years apart at least. But anyway, yeah, so it's a really good book. I really enjoyed reading it. And lastly, I also read the Girls with Sharp Sticks series, Girls with Sharp Sticks, Girls with Razor Hearts, and Girls with Rebel Souls. This is probably the one that I'm going to get into the most detail about in this video. That's why I saved it for last. But basically it's about these girls who start off the first book being in a finishing school of sorts, and you find out that, you know, this is taking place in modern day, and yet they're being raised in this finishing school with like these really old ideals. They're not allowed to use the internet. They're supposed to like stay virginal and whatnot. They're supposed to always be like flawless. They're not supposed to get scars or anything. So they have to like not do anything crazy where they could get injured and get scarred. So it's really, really weird. And then you find, they find out what's going on, that the school that they're in is not normal, and that the school that they're in has no actual record of any students or being a school or anything. And they sort of they start trying to figure out how to leave. And then the only thing that I didn't like is that the twist at the end of the first book, that where you find out where the girls actually came from, I felt like that made the story a totally different kind of story. I'm not going to give anything away, but it ruined part of the impact, I think. And then, in the second book, you kind of see they find out that, they start going to like a normal school and all of that. They leave the finishing school, they start going to just a normal school out in the world and everything. And they find out that their weirdo finishing school was like a symptom of a larger problem of just the patriarchy and toxic masculinity. And then the third book is probably my least favorite because it was mostly just tying up the loose ends. It was a little bit shorter than the other two, but also it was kind of weird how the third book especially starts talking about how the best way to make sure that uh, the patriarchy doesn't succeed is by like voting the right way and all of that. And I thought that seemed kind of weird, because we know, and this is a recent book, this is not, or this is a fairly recent series, like it came out over the past maybe 4 years. It's not that old at all. And yet, we already know, we found out a while ago that voting the right way is not, it doesn't really do anything. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. And so it just kind of seemed really funny to me that the last book had such an emphasis on, like, we need to make sure we vote the right way and that more people vote the right way. And I'm like, that feels really cheap compared to the whole rest of the message of this story. I don't know. But overall, I really liked it. I think it had some really good quotes and points that it made about toxic masculinity and the patriarchy and how people who are not men are treated. And how men just kind of think that women owe them and that it shouldn't be that way, and why it's that way and why it shouldn't be that way and all of that. So I definitely highly recommend this series so much. But I mean, it wasn't, it definitely did have its issues, but I really liked it a lot. So anyway, those are the books that I read in the latter half of October. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any thoughts on any of these books, if you've read any of these, or think that any of them sound interesting to you, you should totally tell me in the comments, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Bye!